All right. Welcome to my time under tension back training workout. You guys are gonna love this, so stay with me for the whole thing, and I'll take you through everything you do. Now, the beauty of time under tension is you don't need crazy heavy weights to do this. So, our first exercise, I've got my kettlebells over here. This is quite unique as well. So, I'm just setting up the box in a nice, unique position so it's comfortable for me. That's why I like to use the corners. And what I'm doing basically here is pulling my shoulder blades back, pulling those elbows in. And what you guys can see is a rotation of my elbows out on the way down so I can get a nice little stretch. Now, it doesn't look like textbook forming technique, but I get that stretch and squeeze in my back. So this is something different. A lot of you wouldn't have probably tried this. And I'll do something like this for about 12 reps to start my back workout, getting this a nice stretch and a nice squeeze. So something a little bit different, something most of you wouldn't have done before, but it is so good. And then I'm going to be moving on to the lat pull down with my V bar. I love the V bars because it's very easy to activate my lats during this movement. Very, very easy. What I focus on as well with this one is ensuring that I keep my elbows really nice and tucked in. And you guys would have seen me in the start how I lean slightly forward. What I'm doing here is my elbows are fully out and I'm pushing forward to get a full stretch in my lats, bringing those elbows in, rotating my shoulder blades in and giving a nice squeeze. And this angle might not do it all the justice in the world. However, I can get a nice, real good squeeze. Now, our purpose over here is time under tension training. So we're trying to keep as much tension on the muscles as possible, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to slow down the movement, increase the tension without having to increase the weight. And that's the beauty of this type of training, because you can use very light weights, as you guys can see, but you can grow, and on top of it you also get better muscle activation. So like, why not? Now, why use this type of training in back? Okay, so over here I've got a rope. You can see me slightly adjust here, making sure that I'm actually focusing, feeling the stretch, because I didn't feel it before and I couldn't really feel the muscle work. So that's why I adjusted, and making sure when I come back, my elbows are rotated out, which applies in most back movements, so I can give those lats a stretch. I want a full range. I'm trying to prolong, okay, the range that I'm working with as much as possible, because when the weight travels over a longer period, I can actually get an overall higher tension or higher amount of tension applied to the muscle. And this is what I'm trying to do. I'm not only prolonging the amount of time I'm working, I'm also prolonging the distance traveled with this. So that's the beauty of this workout. And of course, over here I've got a 30-second pause, which I absolutely love. Gives that nice little squeeze in the back and focuses on the stretch on the way down. One great exercise I love, and I wouldn't trade it. Next up over here, I've got my single arm dumbbell row. But look at that little twist here. When I come down for this movement, I also let my elbows really relax and also let my shoulders relax so I can stretch my lats out as much as possible. So this whole workout is based on stretching and squeezing. So before you get into this workout, you want to ensure that you are stretching your lats as far as you can and squeezing. We trying to ensure full range of motion. Okay, when I come up as well, what you guys can notice here is I'm also doing something called an isometric hold, where I'm holding the weight at least for 30 seconds and squeezing my back as much as possible. Now, by doing this, I'm actually increasing my time under tension, but I'm also increasing or improving my mind muscle connection. So this is a very big part of weightlifting, and I'm sure most of you know that after something like this, you can progressively overload. Okay, now just a different angle here, but what you guys can see over here is those elbows are being swung around a little bit more as I come in. So I try and keep my torso still quite stable without moving my torso, but bringing those elbows over. And what that does is it actually activates my lats, and then I still get that stretching. So working with a full range of motion, again, I'm just trying to prolong the distance that the weight actually travels, as well as, of course, the time. That's why I'm doing some isometric holds to pull more tension on it. And these are some of the things that you guys want to take into consideration when you are looking at training with time and attention and lighter weights, because we already know that on the strength curve with hypertrophy, our heavier weights always outdoes our lighter weight. It's always number one when it comes to hypertrophy. So it's very, very hard to actually beat that. Here I've got a nice little flex, getting those lats out. And at this point, they're activated already, so it's very easy to show. But sometimes I also like to pose in between my sets just to help activation. Now, this one's a very interesting movement over here. So a lot of interest in the new movements that most of you probably wouldn't have seen before. What I'm doing here is I'm doing a conventional barbell row, and I'm pulling my torso up at the peak of the squeeze. So this is a few things happening here. Now, this is quite heavy weight for this movement, okay? A few things happening here, making sure your forming technique is actually pretty good with the barbell row. When it comes up to the top, I'm doing an isometric hold, and I'm just pulling, okay? So I pull that way up, and I'm still pulling my torso back, pulling the shoulder blades back even more and extending it. And I personally will be quite careful with such a movement like that, especially if you have any sort of lower back issues. I generally feel, and I've always felt very comfortable with this movement, but again, it's a very advanced movement, and I personally wouldn't recommend it to beginners at all with this. Now, I love this one as well, to hitting the outer part of our lats, a wide row. I absolutely love this. Again, getting to a nice position, making sure you can get a nice stretch. I did minimize my time and attention here because I was just trying to get those reps out with this one and trying to basically load the muscle with as much as I could for this one. So it's just this another one year where my focus was more time under tension by pumping as much blood in the muscle and minimal rest in between. Over here, now this is quite similar to a row as most of you might see, but it hits quite different angles as well. I actually personally love this exercise. It just gets a little bit irritating when the weight gets too heavy for this exercise. This is one of actually my favorite back movements, but when it gets too heavy, it's hard to just actually get a good grip on it. Now, the reason why it's just my favorite back movement is just the angle and the way the actual weight moves is just so smooth. I get such a good contraction that it can really, really stretch my back out as well too on the way down. So for me, this is a massive game changer, and it's definitely a winner in my books. Like, absolutely love this movement. And yeah, like, definitely one of my best movements. Like, you can load this up quite a bit more, but again, with this one, our main goal is to just get that nice stretch on the way down, get a nice squeeze on the way up. So time and attention is key, and when you're working with time and attention, you kind of have to stick to it as well too. You can combine it with some heavier weights afterwards, after you've got some good mind muscle connection. Nothing wrong with that, but I prefer to ensure that I'm still doing a little victory dance there because I hit my sets. Yeah, so this is very cool as well. So this one's a deadlift, but as I pull the deadlift up, I go into a high row. So I'm engaging my lower back slightly, but I'm also using a bit of momentum to get my upper back, my traps, all activated as well too, and my rhomboid. So it's a very, very strong, powerful movement. With a movement like this, you can actually do quite heavy weights, although I didn't do much heavy weights with that for time and attention training. It's a great one to do heavy weights. Now, this is not for this one because this is very, very cool. So what we've got here is a row with the rope. Now we've got the rope so we can actually basically alter our form as well too with this and the position of our hands. But when we come up here, what we're doing is really giving it a nice stretch. It's allowing us so much freedom to really, really stretch our lats and also pull right back explosively to also basically take a lot of the load in so many different free angles. And this is the beauty of this exercise, is it makes you so free. You get a nice stretch because the pulley is very high. I personally don't have very long arms and long levers. This works beautiful for me, especially for people that can't get much of a stretch on a lat pull down before they're restricted. This exercise works so well for me. And yeah, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to support me, like, comment, subscribe. Chuck a few comments below as well. Support the algorithm so YouTube can start boosting my videos. And thank you guys so much again. Thanks for continuously supporting me. I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to follow my Instagram at Kwame Duah, my YouTube at Kwame Duah V2, my Facebook at BB Kwame. Thanks again. Your boys out. Peace.